Hi, everyone. I'm Dee Good. I'm with Chimbala Mountain Center. And today I'm delighted to be here with Harville Hendrix and Helen LaKelly Hunt, who are relationship experts. And what is more important in your life than relationships? Welcome to you both.
Thank you. We're delighted to be here, Dee, and looking forward to this conversation and to being with you all in January.
Yes, and so you're going to be doing an online program for us in January, and it's the first that you've done with Chimbala Mountain Center. So I'd love to hear about your approach.
Well, we call it couples therapy, imago relationship therapy, and it basically is a couples therapy. It was has I guess it began as a couples therapy, sort of um, accidentally with Helen and me in 1977. Shortly after we met, we were both divorced and were beginning to. We weren't actually a couple yet. We were just sort of visiting with each other, but we had a very intense relationship from the beginning, intensely emotionally negative and positive. And so we were into one of our early fights in which Helen, and we were in Helen's living room, and Helen said, "Hey, let's stop. One of us talk and the other one listen." And so that actually calmed us down. And what we didn't neither know at the time, but that was the beginning of the primary tool or skill or intervention in imagotherapy called dialogue, because that was the beginning of the dialogue process. One person talk, one person one person talk at a time. At that time, Helen, we didn't even have one person talk and one person listen. It was
Yeah,
just only one
yeah,
person can
yeah.
talk at a
But it
time.
was about taking turns
It was about
because we
taking turns
didn't do
talking.
that very naturally. Now, may I correct something you said a little
Of
earlier?
course.
I think Harville, I heard you say that um, imago therapy is you know eventually became a couples therapy, right?
No, it began in your living room
Well,
as a.
I think it began before that.
Oh, you think it began
So
before that?
this guy was making speeches in Dallas, and I went to one of his speeches, and it was amazing. It was, hey everybody! It was a Unitarian church that wanted to bring in speakers on not a worship day, but a day before the worship day, and it was in a garage, and there were little fold-out chairs, and I had met Harville, and I knew he had been asked to make a talk. I thought, I'll go with him because you asked me to. I thought, wonder what he'll talk about. So there was this chalkboard, this big chalkboard in the garage, and he said, okay, hello, everybody. A lot of people don't know every relationship that begins, that is may lead to marriage. There's an attraction, and we call that phase one. And after phase one of that relationship, there's phase two, which is the power struggle. And everyone in phase two can get to phase three, which is real love. And here's some things you need to do to get to real love. Well, that knocked my socks off. Who had structured? I think this guy's genius is simplifying the complex. But anyway, my last thing, this is sort of funny. Harville would go, I'm studying marriages. Why does the marriage of the dream become a disaster? And then
Why does the marriage of the dream become the marriage of your
yeah,
nightmares?
and then you said, and also, why would anyone divorce me?
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
funny one. He would go, I'm such a great guy. Why would this woman divorce me?
And you,
So it sort of began as a couple's wonderment,
yeah,
shall
and
we
you had
say.
similar sentiments
Oh,
yourself about how come you were divorced, and
oh,
who would pass us
and
by?
one of the things that'll happen in the video is all of our brokenness shows because we almost got a divorce after we had been married 20 years as relationship experts,
Would
and we patched it up, and we got a great
no,
relationship these
did
days.
we patch it up or rebuild it from the ground up?
You
It
tell
was
me.
it was I think it was more than a patch.
Whatever he
It was
says. All I know is we're not talking about divorce anymore. And
I
so
love that.
we're a
Well, today,
relationship that
who
gives,
knows what'll happen tomorrow.
we're a couple that gives any relationship hope.
One of the things that we discovered with that question about why do couples, so we asked the question, why do couples fight? And it took a long time to answer that question because there are all kinds of answers to it in the literature. And I kept finding, and I'm an academic at heart. Fundamentally, I'm an academic. So I studied the literature. I want to know what everybody else said about something. And there were just 20, I think one time I had 22 different answers from the literature about why couples fight, why they get into conflict, and why they divorce. And none of them actually ever was convincing. And one day it dawned on us that out of all those 22, and some of them we had 4 or 5 that were not on target, but they finally collapsed into a one word thing. It's like there's a research process in which you look at everything and you find that one thing is behind all of the many things. And we found it was the objection to difference.
Mm.
That couples fight because they don't accept their partner as their partner is, i.e., they want their partner to be like they want them to be. And when their partner is different, has different thoughts, different points of view, different tastes, different sleeping patterns. In other words, difference is just annoying. You should be, in some sense, a sameness. And we found that we could use that as a window through which to look at couples and see it applied to everybody everywhere. And that it led to, initially, difference leads to tension. And then if you don't work with the tension and dissolve it, it leads to conflict. And if you don't get the conflict resolved, it leads to polarization. And when you get to polarization, you're probably then going to get a divorce. And about 50% of couples, as we know, still, there's I think the number goes between 47 and 52 over the past 70 years, get a divorce because they cannot resolve the problem of difference.
Mm.
If I could just say, couples married or romantically attracted will really love this, but it's not just for couples. The couples can get a lot out of it because that's our lane in the bowling alley. But friends or coworkers, these same tools work with two people at work that just want to learn more about relationship.
Yeah.
And recently, the Gen Z has knocked on our door. And if I don't know, do you have young people come to the retreat center?
Yes. Mhm.
So Gen Z, they are lonely and they're anxious. And they've asked us to teach them friendship. And
Mm.
so if there are any young people watching, uh, the last thing I will say is it was a psychiatrist who learned about our work and watched us do it and then called us. We didn't even know her. She called us and said, for the first time in the history of the world, the relational sciences are teachable. You can teach people
Mm.
have a friend. She didn't say that. She said you can teach any two people to have a safer relationship.
Mhm. Wonderful. And I love how you two have, you've walked the talk and you've been through these challenges that relationships encounter. So is there a particular aspect of mindfulness that couples can work with to nurture a relationship?
Well, I think so. I think I want to make 2 comments about that. I think that the dialogue process itself, when practiced, is a mindful process.
We talk about meditating on the other person's words before you react with
Yeah,
your own thoughts, but just practice the other person being
right.
a wonder why they think that.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful, peaceful way to live.
Well, and and focusing on the other, what you do in order to really make that conversation work is you have to really get what the other person is saying. And you can't do that if you're running scenarios in your head about them or about you or about anything else. So that the centering process, that as I understand is part of the mindfulness process, has to be engaged in order to have a dialogue that's connecting. And that's what the whole purpose of dialogue is. You can't connect if you're distracted by all the thoughts that are running through that. And the second, I think that the practice of mindfulness privately as a private discipline is training for the ability to focus and hold attention.
Mhm.
Because it's really at the times that I've done it, and I'm not doing it right now, but I've practiced mindfulness off and on and different types of practices. It's very hard to hold something. It's amazing how many. It's almost like a group of you're holding something, and a whole group of horses comes running at you to get you not to stay focused, but to going back to it and going back to it. And eventually, that's good training for the dialogue process. And the dialogue process, whether you practice mindfulness or not, is a mindful process, or it doesn't really work.
So in the program, people can expect to work on the dialogue process. And what other things can people expect from the workshop?
Well, we found that what we think is the non-negotiable factor in a thriving relationship. And we think it is absolutely and research-wise proven to be non-negotiable. What they can look forward to is we will invite them into a whole new world called the world of zero negativity. And that is living without judgment of other people, especially your partner and of everybody else. Judgment and connecting do not go together. Judgment and intimacy do not go together. Negativity and great sexuality do not go together. Safety, which is absolutely required in a thriving relationship, and negativity are not possible. So we found that as difference is the primary point of rupture in relationships, zero negativity is the primary commitment that a couple has to make to each other to remove negativity from their interactions with each other, start there, and eventually from their ruminations. And what that gives everybody then is a safe relationship in which you thrive, and you also have a brain that's then can focus on creativity, imagination, excitement, and joy, rather than on who did what to whom and why, and how am I going to get them back for that. That's and what happens with that. And Helen, you may want to pick up on this because you talk about what that does to your brain. Why don't you pick up on that brain and longevity and all that sort of stuff?
A major thing they'll learn, and if we have to end soon, this is the one to end on, is how much do y'all teach the average person that comes to the retreat center about brain science?
Some programs do focus on neuroscience development and things like that. Mhm.
That sounds really sophisticated, right? Well, because the organ in your skull's considered the most complex organ in the universe, according to brain scientists. But we simplify the brain and learn and teach it because this works if you see the brain in just two ways. It's like how it can be seen. Everyone has a crocodile brain. And thank goodness there is part of your brain that wants to keep you alive. And like suddenly if there's a clap of thunder or it sounds like a tornado or you hear a crash outside and there's a wreck, well, your brain gets anxious and then is there any threat to your life? And it keeps you alive. So we call it the crocodile brain. And sometimes a person can say something and it's different than how you think. Like, you think what about the vaccine? Listen, you're going to kill me, Well, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. You can talk that way to someone, or you could use the wise owl part of the brain. And that's the upper brain where it's called the neocortex, where you can collaborate, cooperate, co-create plans, create win-wins. Lower crocodile brain can't do it. And the imago dialogue, the sentence sims, takes you to the upper brain, where you take turns talking and listening. But the beautiful part of the upper brain is it's called the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, and that's what your retreat centers specialize in. It puts you in a place of wonder. And when you wonder about people, it releases, as you know, you could probably talk an hour, dopamine, acetylcholine, norepinephrine, serotonin, relaxing neurochemicals. So we do think if you want to understand how to have better relationships, you need to learn a little bit about the brain, that there's a lower brain and there's an upper brain, and live your life in the upper part of the brain.
So I think we could summarize it by what are people going to get? Is first they're going to get a new way to talk, and that's called dialogue. They're going to get a new way to live, and that's called a zero negativity free life. And they're going to get a better operating brain, because we've discovered that when you practice dialogue, you actually increase the integration of the brain, and therefore you get new neurons. And when you get enough of those new neurons, you get a new neural structure. So you get a better brain, a life without negativity, and you learn how to talk so that you can talk about anything without polarizing.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And I hope that people are able to join you in January, join us for this wonderful offering.
Yes, and we do too. And we want to say that about being online,
Mhm.
that we've been online now, like other people for a long time. And we found that the workshops work equal to, if not better, than face to face. So we are very happy. And couples who give us reports who've done both with us have they feeling that the online was in fact a little bit better, because there was something about doing the work in your living room, like here. And so you don't have to leave a retreat center and try to get it home. I know one couple said it was hard to leave the retreat room and get to the car without going back to our old habits. But doing this workshop in our living room, looking at the screen, we imprinted the new learning in our living room. So consequently, when we walk in the living room, the brain says, "Here's where you learn how to talk." So there's an added value that we didn't come up with. Couples contributed that to us from their own experience. So we're looking forward to seeing lots of you in January.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. We appreciate you.